Okay, we are live. So, okay, I've got to do something here before we get started.
No. I'll talk later.
All right, has anybody been having any good dreams or encounters lately?
We just came back from a great encounter.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right. We are going to start off with a couple of current events, and then we're going to get into it. This is off a show called Redacted. It's one of the non-mainstream medias, but everything they research. You know, when Ukraine started, they a lot of the good news stations after the first week stopped reporting, and people would say, "Why aren't you reporting?" They say, "Because right now we're in the fog of war. Everything we put out there, for the sake of honesty, we had to walk back. You know, the video of the dead body pulling the body bag back over himself." All the different, stuff. The ghost of Kiev that shot down 6 planes was off a video game that somebody had recorded. All this stuff. But these people actually look for truth. That's what I like about Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro, he don't care what, he's just going for truth. If the left steps out of line, he hammers them. If the right steps out of line, he hammers them. It's just, and nothing is more upsetting to me than to see people who have my mindset telling lies in order to make. No, listen, the truth is the truth. We need the truth, even if it makes us feel uncomfortable. We need the truth. Yeah. All right. But anyway, this is something that's going on in Sri Lanka. And remember, this is a third world country. Okay. We're not third world. Okay. So, but they actually, in a lot of ways, depend on us. Okay. Now, people want to get upset about clothing factories in Sri Lanka and places like that. Okay. Odds are let's take that back. Allegedly, any big name factory that sells their clothes for, so erase odds out there, sells their clothes for high dollar America can go there and have it made for pennies and then bring it back here and sell it for massive dollars. Okay. Now, people say, well, that's immoral. Well, I don't know that's immoral. I think that they do take advantage of, like your friend's daughter that works at the Ford factory in Mexico. By the time she pays her way and her lunch, she's not making much, is she? Not much at all. And yet they're selling their cars for $60,000, $80,000, $100,000. Okay. So, if you take that factory out, they have no work at all. When they done a Fulton County book on Fulton County one time, and all the local families put their history in it and their experiences. And I asked my mom, said, "You going to do that for our family?" She said, "No." She said, "Most of mine is just a little too painful. My family never really embraced too much going to church. Made some bad decisions, and so probably some regrets." But after she passed, I talked to my aunt. I said, "Tell me at least one good story from when you were little." And she said, "Well, times were so hard in Salem and surrounding areas that when we were little kids, our mom and dad loaded us up and we rode from Sturkey to Michigan in the back of a truck." How many, as a kid, spent time in the back of the truck? Live to tell about it. Oh man, it's just a miracle you're alive. I think my dad used to try to throw us out on purpose. I mean, we were going 50 miles an hour down dirt roads, and here me and my sister and my cousin were leaning off the side trying to touch trees, leaves on tree limbs. Apparently. Actually, that was when my dad done the brake check and kind of threw us all against the cab. Slid in head first. But these people count on our nation. That's why so many while we were all locked down in an effort to save a few lives, we cost millions of lives somewhere else because there was no medicine going out. There was no food going out. There was no production going out. Okay. We were all worried about ourselves, and we were only counting one certain type of death, when in Tennessee, at the least halfway point, at one time, there was more suicides than there was death from that particular thing. But yet that death didn't count, but this death did. I wrote an article one time called "When Society Forces You to Choose Between the Chicken and the Fox." You know, there's how many know that there's some people that love their chickens?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, love their. I'm not talking about eating them. I'm talking about love their chickens. And they make little coats for them. They make little sweaters for them. They're always sitting on the shoulder, sitting in their lap. And if a fox come anywhere near that chicken, they had no qualms about killing that fox. All right. Now, there's people out there that think chickens are the dumbest animals on the face of the earth, and they love that beautiful fox in the wilderness, and they say you should never harm that fox. Who cares if it eats a stupid chicken or something? Okay, so there's bias on both sides. The people with the chickens have no trouble killing the fox, that fox to death. The people that love the fox had no trouble 10, 20, 30 chickens getting killed in the nighttime. Well, they're stupid. They don't matter. So people go through life with biases. Okay. Remember, life is important, but you can't just count one thing and not count the rest. All right. When we pulled out of a certain country 8 or 9 months ago, they said there's going to be 1 million children starved to death right away. Starved to death. Okay. Now, the church, we kind of, we over the centuries, we've looked at people in North Korea starving and say, oh man, that's horrible. And probably didn't give a penny to help. Looked at people over in Iraq and Iran, getting killed, raped, beheaded, burned alive by ISIS, and said, man, that's tough being a Christian in that part of the country. But God said there's going to be persecution. So y'all just, hang tough and probably never send a penny to help. See Christians in different places of the world, in China, underground church, or wherever. And say, man, it's just, persecution is just part of it. And then it gets even close to us in America. Rapture. God's got to be coming soon. You're going to have to butch up, Sally. Listen, what makes you think that all of the church is going to suffer some heat and we ain't going to get any? Is it going to be here like it was there? I pray not. But at the same time, don't think that we're above. Does the Bible... Here, I got a lot smart, but does the Bible not say that he perfected Jesus through suffering? Does he not do us the same way? Okay, imagine what spoiled little kids we would be if we got everything we wanted at every time we wanted it. Facebook just killed me right then. Okay. Or my battery went dead. I don't know. So anyway, we lost one feed. We still got YouTube though. All right. Let's listen to this real quick. Who as a child got taken out behind the woodshed? I like that. How many,
We had no.
My father didn't waste any time.
Listen, I've seen good parents give it right in the middle of town and country. Okay. But how many done something bad enough that your parent laid enough of a smackdown on you that you thought, I'm never doing that again? Yeah, that particular pleasure wasn't worth the pain. Okay, now welcome America to what's going to happen to us, because we're going to go through a whipping that we will never forget. And by the time we're done with it, we won't ever want the things that we thought we wanted anymore.
It's a major story that I want everyone to pay attention to. There's something you won't see on CNN, you won't see it on the Western media. What's happening in the small Asian country of Sri Lanka is about to happen to the rest of the world, and it's very important that we should be paying attention. The sad part is that all of this was created by Western politicians. So just to give you a sense of what's actually happening in Sri Lanka right now, long lines, people can't get access to, they can't get the money out of their banks, They can't get gasoline. They're waiting in incredibly long lines just to get food. Right now, inflation is off the charts. Here is some people waiting in line for hours just to get access to gasoline.
So how long have you been waiting?
About 3-4 hours.
3-4 hours?
Yeah, waiting here.
Oh my God, for petrol.
Yeah, petrol.
Exasperated queues for tuk-tuks.
Gas no, petrol no, diesel no. Too much problem.
So how long have you been waiting?
About 3-4 hours.
3-4 hours?
Yeah, waiting here.
Oh my God, for petrol.
Yeah, petrol.
Exasperated queues for tuk-tuks.
Gas no, petrol no, diesel no. Too much problem.
Gasoline at all. They can't run. So these people are out of a job. They can't do anything.
In fact, the government there is saying they have 1 day reserves for the whole country, and that's it.
Yeah.
They don't have enough for everyone to get gas for more than 1 day.
Yeah, and so these people are up, without power for 15 hours a day. We had a power outage here at the station a little while earlier today. That's why we had some problems technically. But we were able to get at least some part of it back up and running. 15 hours a day forced without any kind of electricity in the heat that they experience there. No way to keep food refrigerated because they don't have any food right now. In Sri Lanka, the police are unable to contain the anger of the starving people that are happening, that are taking to the streets right now. Politicians being beaten, right, in their homes, their cars set on fire or thrown over. This is just an example of some of the attacks that are happening, as you see here, as people are attacking. This is an attack on politicians, as people are grabbing these politicians out of their cars.
Oh my
and
goodness,
beating
those
them.
are bats and wooden sticks.
Yes, all of this. I mean, this is what's happening. Look at this.
Nah, I ain't gonna get online and say that's a good thing, but might be justified to those people anyway, because the people that have created that seem to be above it majority of the time because their cars always have gas. I bet their houses have electricity. These people who knows what the basic thing of Marxism is. Marxism says we have to make your life so miserable, so heinous, so horrible, and upset, and keep you so in shambles that you will give up your freedom for security.
Hey, for food.
Yeah.
The lady that stayed with us, she is retired Air Force, and her husband was retired Navy. So somehow, what is the name of the bank that they, anyway, military bank that they put their money in. And
Credit union. Credit union.
There's a name for it.
Travis Credit Union, Air Force.
Anyway, she hadn't been able to access her account for the last 2 weeks, and the credit card won't go through. That accesses her money
Mhm.
for 2 weeks, and she just won several. Anyway,
I've heard some very smart.
it's the same as where they get their insurance. What's military insurance?
I don't know.
USAA.
USA.
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about AARP?
No, that's retired. No, it's military. I think it's close to the
Yeah.
USA, but
Yeah.
anyway.
The smart people I listen to.
Military credit cards are stopped at the moment. We haven't heard anything on TV about it.
Oh, you won't either. Smart people I listen to say that if you have your money in a big bank, and I'm not going to name any names, they say get it out and get it in a local bank, a low credit union. I've talked to my bankers more than once. I said, what's going to happen if everything dumps? He said, they'll tell you, if we go under, America's under. I did have, God forewarned me what's, going to happen to some extent, because I had a dream. See, dreams are types and symbols. My neighbor's retired military. Okay. I had a dream that my neighbor took my wallet from me and threw it down into a dry pond. And I just happened to land in a 5-gallon bucket. And I immediately ran down there and got my billfold looked, and nothing was gone. I didn't lose anything. But with a military freeze or whatever freeze is going to happen, there's going to be maybe a temporary not access to money.
Just like murder.
Yeah.
You know, all the retired military people screaming.
About 2 years ago, I had a dream. Who knows what a siege tower is? Okay. You know, it's the big thing that they roll up to a wall to climb up and go over, or sometimes they got a battering ram in them to knock the gates down, knock the wall down. And I had a dream, and I hadn't been watching anything even related to this. This was just out of the blue. I had a dream one night. I saw the whole dream was black and white. I saw a siege tower roll up to this one side. Nothing happened. I saw the siege tower roll up to this other side. Nothing happened. And then all of a sudden, straight down the middle, this huge golden siege tower, and this was the only thing in color in the dream, came up to that fortress, that stronghold, and it hit it 3 times. And the whole world shook. I mean, it was literally like somebody took your head and just went so our whole world at some point is going to shake. But God's going to give a decisive victory. And then, so I've just sat on that for 2 years. Told it to a few people, always timeline it, but send it to somebody on Messenger. And, you know, here in the last month, people with the prophetical voice are talking about the battering ram anointing that's coming. So I like that. One more short one I like, Dana Coverstone. He gives current events. We're going to have about 5 minutes of this.
Where we are right now. News report said that basically some 76 gas stations in Washington, D.C. have had their numbers reprogrammed so they can go to double digits, which means $10 a gallon gas. So predictive programming is telling us that's probably where we're going. News targeted at this article, Welfare Nation, more than half of U.S.-born babies are eligible for welfare benefits, including food assistance, once they are born. So that tells you the state of the union. Someone wants to say hi. Maple showed up, but she said, well, you showed Moose on there. I want to come up and be seen too. It's funny because she'll see herself sometimes on here, and she'll just look and look and look before I go live. German Supreme Court rules compulsory, required by law, mandates by the government for health workers are constitutional. So health workers in Germany just lost their constitutional rights. They don't have a constitution like we do, but we do have one that should be honored, sometimes isn't. WND News, here we go again. Biden officials warn COVID cases are rising. If you watch the news, it is ominous, ominous, ominous. Everybody's going to die in the fall because COVID cases are going up. However, the majority of people that are hospitalized and dying right now have had something. And you may have also seen, and just this morning, New York City now has a potential monkeypox case. Massachusetts, they found a case there of monkeypox. Isn't it interesting? In the last several months, we've been told, some new pandemic is coming our way. Once again, predictive programming. InfoWars had this article, Vaccines Magazine, mRNA vaccines significantly associated with deadly blood clots, major study finds. Why did it take so long for that to come out? A school board director in a state on the west coast, northwest coast, school board director plans queer night for children hosted inside a sex shop, inviting children 0 to 18 to come. And you wonder, and the school went and said, hey, this is not associated with the school, but the fact it's a school board president, whatever, it ought to set off alarm bells. Not enough people are being upset about these things. So parents, be involved with what's happening at your schools with your kids. Show up at school board meetings and let them know how you feel about things, okay? House passes a fuel price gouging bill. And according to the article, Zero Hedge, this should set off alarm bells across all the industries. Basically, they're going to say, you can't go above this price for gas. Well, that's regulation. And we do have a free market. We used to have a free market, but nonetheless. Zero Hedge also had this article, build blackouts better. Half of America faces power blackouts this summer. Regulator warns. So we're being told. Here's the maddening one for today. Senate blocks $48 billion small business aid package hours before passing a $40 billion in Ukraine aid. I'm all for helping nations. But since we don't really know the whole piece of what's going on there, all these biolabs have been discovered and found out that we were involved with them. We also see a whole lot of crazy things and are finding out now that many of the blame that's going to Russia for all these deaths and mass graves are actually found out now it's some of the Nazi groups associated with Ukraine. You don't know who to believe. We have reporters coming out saying, hey, wait a minute. These are not the things you're hearing are not the things that are really happening there. So you got to read between the lines. There's also U.S. lawmakers urge binding vote on Puerto Rico statehood. That's being pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. But just the fact that small businesses who have been hammered since the pandemic started on purpose intentionally, and the Senate blocked the $48 billion small business aid package. That bothers me. Thank goodness that Rand Paul said, my oath is to the Constitution of the United States of America and not to foreign nations. Thank you, Senator Rand Paul, my senator. I'm grateful for your stand and your take on these things. It's an interesting world. You may have also found this, why the Biden administration just purchased 13 million doses of monkeypox vaccines. Read between the lines. And here's another interesting article from dailymail.co.uk. Young girls are starting to undergo puberty as young as 6 years old.
As young as 6 years old. You know, we've still not seen the fallout from what things may happen to young people that they're pushing. And he goes on to say that even the scientists now are saying that nobody under the age of 60 should take a certain something. Okay, and I've listened to the people that created this, and they say that for some odd reason, this spike protein is getting in pulling in the ovaries of women. And they say, what does that mean? They said, we don't know what that means yet. There were people who work with OBGYNs at the beginning of this contacted my daughter, said, you know, my niece, and then who consequently told my daughter, if you plan on having children in the future, don't take this. Okay. They're pushing it to little kids who have more of a chance of being struck by lightning and dying than dying from this. Okay. So, you know, we don't know the sterility as far in the last 20 years, the viability of men in America have gone down to 40%. You want to know why people ain't having babies?
I've been thinking about, you know, the shortage of baby formula and the problems there. And I remember the scripture, woe to them that get sucked.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think that's just a minute thing that we are anticipating that will happen severely in the future.
Well, just imagine during the tribulation when there is no food. If you're going to be righteous and not worship or take that mark, then you have a baby. Well, like remember I said, and I've mentioned more than once, in China, the man said, I saw the sad thing everybody was talking about. I saw families trading their children so they wouldn't have to eat their own. If you as a mom are not eating, you're not going to be producing milk. And what would be more horrifying than as a mother watch your baby starve to death?
Yeah, we just saw a little minute.
Yeah. Now remember, this device right here, this internet, has laid. You talking about the rich man Lazarus, and everybody wants to bust the rich man, but the internet has laid Lazarus at our front gate. Okay. I dare say there's not anybody in here that looks emaciated. Okay. But yet people in third world countries, except for Mark, I used to work with a guy that was so skinny that his pajamas only had one stripe on them. But imagine these people who are, oddly enough, they have internet access. Okay, they have internet, and they see, you know, in Europe, Americans are called the bubble people because we're the biggest importer of food, and we're the most obese nation out there. And everywhere that our nation's diet touches, it follows suit. Diabetes follows, all kinds of metabolic disease follows. Okay, so take that for what it's worth. But they're watching us, and even the poorest among us is rich compared to them, and yet still people are eating just like the rich man at the table. And there's the poor man laying outside the gate just wishing for one of our crumbs, and still giving is less now than it was during the Great Depression. Still people aren't giving. Oh, that's just those evil preachers. They just want your money. It's like, well, you know what? There are valid organizations out there whose CEOs don't make millions of dollars, who when you give 95% of the money, 95 cents of every dollar goes to that particular place. Okay. So if you're just using that excuse, then you're not even trying because you're not looking. But I'm telling you right now, Jesus said, if come in on this side, go away on this side. Why? You fed me, you clothed me, you helped me. This side, you didn't feed me, you didn't clothe me, you didn't help me. When did we see you? That when you've done it to the least of these, my brother. Now, who's Jesus' brother? I mean, that can denote Jews because he was a Jew, but also denotes when he was teaching and his disciples said, your mother and brother are outside trying to get in to see you. And he said, who is my mother and my brother? It's not he who follows the commandments. You know, so these people aren't necessarily heathens. And they may never know kindness unless somebody shows them. So you call it beating you around the ears. I call it encouragement. Give, even if it's just, listen, I've heard people for years. If I win the lottery, I'm going to go do this. Or I'm going to be like, you know what? Take that money you're spending on the lottery tickets and just give it. If you use your money responsibly, God will multiply you. If you're just blowing it, thinking one day when I'm rich, I'm going to help. No. If you got $1, give $1. Everybody in this room gave $1. There's $20. There's $80 a month. 8 times 12. That's $960. Yeah, $960 a year. If everybody gave $1 every Sunday here, there would be one village somewhere that had a well that wouldn't have to walk 5 miles and carry back muddy water with a mosquito larva in it.
That means a lot.
The reason their bellies are so distended over there isn't because they're fat. It's because they're packed full of parasites and worms from dirty water. But people just can't give $1.
No.
Or worse yet, I've heard these people, all these millionaire preachers, they want their own plane to fly around. Okay, look at this. But these people, there's 56 weeks a year, 52 weeks a year. 52, depends on where you're at. Okay, 50. I need 56 weeks out of a year, okay? I need that extra month. 52 weeks a year, okay? They're gone for 35 to 40-something weeks flying. Now, if you were going somewhere, would you like to take a bus to go from here to California, to Washington, to Arizona, to Tennessee, back to North Dakota, or would you like to have your own car? Makes just common sense, don't it?
Who's the bus with me?
Well, there's one in every crowd. There he is, right there, folks.
If they were driving with those nuts on the road, I wouldn't take a bus.
Hey, he can go with me.
Okay, there's you two. So, remember, on the bus is not always nice people. And if you've got the Spirit of God on you, and there's a different spirit in that bus, you're gonna, So when these people get down there and say it's like being in an aluminum tube with demons, I've heard so many stories of preachers that got on the planes and literally people started to manifest. Every valid teacher or preacher out there has cast the devil out of somebody on a plane at some point. So, you choose. If a jet costs $80 million and 80 million people gave $1, oh, that's just horrible. That's just raking you over the coals. That's just depriving you of all those, fancy things in life by giving $1. It's called synergy. When everybody works together, you get stuff done. If one or two people out of the whole thing is giving and nobody else is giving, you're not going to get anything done, or not much. Well, God can elevate those people where they can give more. So anyway, Lonnie, you're up.
Okay, the title, The Good Shepherd, Ezekiel 34:2. Son of man, prophesy against the shepherds, the leaders of Israel. Give them this message from the sovereign Lord. What sorrow awaits you shepherds who feed yourselves instead of your flocks? Shouldn't shepherds feed their sheep? You drink the milk, wear the wool, and butcher the best animals. But you let your flocks starve. Therefore, you shepherds, hear the word of the Lord. This is what the sovereign Lord says. I now consider these shepherds my enemies, and I will hold them responsible for what they happen to my flock. I will take away their right to feed the flock, and I will stop them from feeding themselves, and I will rescue my flock from their mouths. The sheep will no longer be their prey, For this is what the sovereign Lord says, I myself will search and find my sheep. I will be like a shepherd looking for a scattered flock. I will find my sheep and rescue them from all the places where they have scattered on that dark and cloudy day. Verse 16, I will search for my lost ones and that who strayed away, and I will bring them to safety home again, and I will bandage their injury and strengthen the weak. But I will destroy those who are fat and powerful. I will feed them feed them justice. And as for you, my flock, this is what the sovereign Lord says to his people. I will judge between one animal of the flock and another, separating the sheep from the goats. Isn't it enough for you to keep the best of the pastures for yourselves? Must you also trample down the rest? Isn't it enough for you to drink clear water for yourselves? Must you also muddy the rest with your feet? Why must my flock eat what you have trampled down and drink water you have plowed? Verse 21. For you fat sheep pushed and butted and crowded my sick and hungry flock until you scattered them to distant lands. So I will rescue my flock, and they will go no longer be abused. I will judge between one animal and of the flock and another. And I will set them one shepherd, my servant David. He will feed them and be a shepherd to them.
I think the justice is about to be fed to a whole lot of people. I think there's a whole lot of people about to find out you don't make a deal with Satan and expect him to keep his word. Okay, who knows what the second Passover is? I'd heard Perry Stone talk about this, and I in the back of my mind, I thought, well, if God put it in there, there's going to be a reason, and now we're about to find out the reason. If the first Passover you were unclean from touching a dead body, if you were out of country and you could be there, then on the 14th of the next month, you had the second Passover when you done the exact same things. You ate the same meal. You done the same thing. Okay, so we had a blood moon that seemingly come out of nowhere, even by the people who watched this last week. They said we got a calendar of when blood moons are supposed to happen. We did this one totally escaped us. So we had a blood moon happen last week. Happened on a feast day. Happened on the second Passover. When a blood moon happens on a Passover, it's a very significant thing. It's God's time clock. Okay, so it happened on that. It happened in the I believe it happened in the constellation of Libra. And the moon happened to be right where the scales of justice are. The moon was right on the pivot point. It wasn't on one side or the other. So God's saying, you're going to decide your justice. With Roe v. Wade coming up, people losing their mind, you know what? Put it this way, if you're out there championing that God has okay with abortion, you're lying. Mm-hmm. When it comes to, if you're a pastor or a Sunday school teacher, you're double lying. Okay, we'll give you the 2% of abortions that from rape and incest. Okay, but still, many valid people who had babies from rape said, "Why should I punish this baby for the evil that somebody did?" And besides that, it's half me. Okay, but God said that when it comes to sacrificing children, He said, "I did not tell them to, neither did I even put the thought in their heart or mind that they did that." Okay, but the abortion industry. Why do you think that, okay, if you passed a law that said, okay, you can abort babies, but you cannot use the fetal tissue, they would lose their mind. Why are they championing this? They need it. They want it. It makes money. It makes money. Okay. So, figure out a way to go with this. All right. Now we're hitting a second blood moon. It's going to come on November 8th. Who knows what else is happening November 8th?
Election.
That's the day of our midterm elections. Okay. Now, Israel was promised that they were going to go from Egypt to the promised land, right? That's a promise from God. But they had a generation that didn't make it because of unbelief because people poison their minds, terrify them, can't go in, the giants are too big. Okay. So they died in the desert. And I don't want to be like Caleb and Joshua. You know, I don't want to spend 40 years walking around with knuckleheads until y'all die so I can go in. Okay.
Never thought about that.
Yeah. You know, when Caleb got into the promised land, he ran off 2 giants from Gileath Arbar, I think is a name. It was the giants took the high place of a city that means friend with God. So they took that. That's where Og, the biggest of them was. But can you imagine when Caleb, after 40 years, went in, he didn't even have to kill him. He ran them off. And you have to think that the conversation had to go something like, he just walks up to him and says, for 40 years, every step I took in that hot sand, I've been thinking of ways to torture you. For 40 years, every time I buried a family member, a friend, or one of my Israelites, I thought about how sweet it will be to cut your head off and stick it on a pole. And after 40 years of doing it, of thinking about it, I'm ready to do it. And they just ran. He didn't even have to kill them. They just ran. Okay, but we had a generation fall because 10 people gave a bad report. Now, what's going to happen in November when something mysteriously comes upon our nation again? And everybody says, you can't go vote. Or we've got to do it this certain way that can be manipulated. Are you going to be like that? Or are you going to get out and do your civic duty? Are you going to be terrified into saying we can't go into this promised land? Or are you going to do it? I'm talking to a small group of people that I think I probably don't need to be talking to, but we're going out and let this be to whoever needs to see it at the time. And let our conversations be to whoever we need to speak it to at the time. Okay. Remember, Marxism is this. We have to terrify you enough that you will give up your freedoms for a little bit of safety. All right. I'm going to show you something real quick. If I can get this queued up.
Get out the vote on this Tuesday, or go vote
Yeah.
for Tuesday.
Oh, is this
Primary.
Primaries.
You can vote any polling station. Early vote will be at the fairgrounds if you wish to vote early. Otherwise, I'll see you at Jeep. Come and see me at Jeep. Way at Jeep. You don't do that anymore. Start listening to me or else.
Hey, could somebody go out there and get knocked?
Still get Michael? Oh, hi. Oh,
I went to go call me, and they were on.
Don't get too rowdy.
So I would be a part
Why would they do that?
Did,
This is the new. I'm gonna take. This baby's almost out of juice. And I've got dry powder breaking milk. I've got to have food for these 2 girls.
very close.
Have you tried it again since then?
Is he coming?
Abby's calling
Thank you.
him. He's not out there.
I called him.
Oh, well, we may just have to put this off till next week. Let me see one more thing here.
One of my friends did is meat.
Tell you one thing. When God called Abraham, I don't know if this is in Genesis or if this was just in Jewish tradition. When he called Abraham, first thing he did when God called him, he went and took a hammer and he smashed, because his father was an idol maker. He smashed all the idols except one and put the hammer in the hands of the one idol. And when his dad came in upset, said, "Who did this?" Abraham said, "Well, there's the one holding the hammer right there." He said, "That's impossible. These things can't do anything." Now there's a revelation. When he called Gideon, first thing Gideon done was he went and he tore down the altar to Baal or Ashtaroth or Moloch, whichever one it was. And then God used him, a remnant, to take down a mighty army. Okay. So the first thing that we as Christians should do, you want to be a Gideon's army? No, well, yeah. In some instances, yeah. Or better yet, smash marks. Yeah, you look at mine, you see the screen's already cracked. So, tear down. When anybody ever look into a child sacrifice under Baal? They took the parents of the children. They were there with them during the sacrifice. They put these big grotesque masks on them with big, huge smiles. And they had the band musicians there playing as loud as possible, beating on the drums, playing the flutes, the harps, whatever they could, so that you couldn't hear the screams of the baby or the cries of the mom and dad. And there's not a more pure picture of today's media than that. Okay? They hid the pain and they hid the screams. Are you dead? Oh. Oh, I couldn't get it. Right up here. Go ahead. Who thinks Michael needs to back here as audio visual guy?
He's really a lot smarter than he looks.
You ready for it? Yeah. Scooch over a little bit.
Go ahead, you bet.
All right. See if we can.
Okay,
turn it up.
You will note that as the suction tip, which is now over here, moves toward the child will rear away from it and undergo much more violent, much more agitated movements. The child is now moving in a much more purposeful manner. Its orientation changes from time to time. It is rearing again here. Now the suction tip has not actually touched the child, even though the child is extremely agitated and moving in a violent manner.
You're about to witness a
The
murder.
child has now moved back to the profile view, and the suction tip is flashing once again across the screen. The child's mouth is now open, and we will see that again on the freeze frame in a moment.
This movie is called The Silent
suction
Scream.
tip, which you can see moving violently back and forth on the bottom of the screen, is the lethal instrument which will ultimately tear apart and destroy the child. It is only after the fluid has been broken, the sac has been disrupted, that the tip will actually come against the child. But we can see the tip moving back and forth as the abortionist seeks the child's body. Once again, we see the child's mouth wide open.
Okay. I'll spare you the gory details. But this is what our nation is fighting for. The right to murder. It's not a clump of cells.
You know what they've done? They've added in, and I think the abortionists did it from what I read. They've added in ectopic pregnancies, infection, stuff that is nowhere.
They're saying if you don't let us have our death, we're going to kill you. Because an ectopic pregnancy could kill them.
There's a bunch of them out there that say if they overturn Roe v. Wade, they're going to burn down the Supreme Court and kill old justice.
Let them try. You know, I mean, and that raises another question: How do people with morals deal with immoral people?
When I was pregnant with her, and I went to Carson, and Carson told me I could either take a pill to kill her, or I could keep her. I said, if you ain't killing my baby, I'm keeping her.
There you go. All right. Bless the people.
Sad. That's all right. God's still
Yeah, and listen before you start, Nick. I want to appreciate Nick because once again, all the stuff that we've talked about here is not a terror. It is not something to be afraid of. It is simply a preparation thing, nothing more. Nick's always reiterated this at the end of the class. If you're scared, don't be scared. Okay, because this is not a terror thing. All right, go ahead.
Extend your hand and receive your blessing. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you, be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and grant you his shalom. Amen. God bless you all. Thank you.
Nick?
Yeah.
I gotta go.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. No, I got it.
Take